Welcome to Recovery Inspired Hope. I have one of my favorite podcasters here. Daniel Unmanageable is what I like to call him. He is the creator and founder of Hard Knocks Talks and has some great stuff. And we've been doing some collaborating. And I had to have him come on here to tell his story because he has a wonderful story, as well as his wife, who I would love to get on here also. So, Daniel, let's talk just a little bit about Hard Knocks Talk so everybody can know where to find you and things like that.
Well, first, thanks for having me. It's great to be on other people's productions. I spend so much time diving into my own, so this is nice. This is good. Hard Knocks Talks is a live streaming talk show on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch that focuses on inspiring stories of recover and real talk about all things substance use. We don't focus on any one pathway to recovery or harm reduction or anything like that. We like to bring information and stories of healing from all walks. So I guess that's in a nutshell what we are.
And you are out of Canada.
Correct. Saskatoon, yes. Saskatchewan.
I love that. I could never say that.
Saskatchewan. Say it with me now. Saskatchewan.
With your accent. I love it.
I have an accent?
Yes.
No, you have an accent.
So you are a sober dad, which I love. A sober husband, all of that. And so tell us a little bit about your story as far as, was there anything crazy that happened like in your, childhood that kind of like set you up for it? Did you have like the genetic disposition of parents with addiction issues? What was that like?
Well, I believe I was born into it. Absolutely, I was born into it. I craved alcohol way before I got my hands on my first drink. And as soon as I got my hands on my first drink, it was all in. Like my whole life became about Friday night. And I was 13 years old. I remember making an absolute mess of myself. I got my hands on a 6-pack of Tall Boys, and me and my best friend, we got through them in one night, and I blacked out. I got blackout drunk, and I woke up and I was soaked in my own piss. And you'd think that would be like, maybe this isn't a great decision, but I remember going to school on Monday morning and bragging to my friends about how big a mess I made. So, I mean, looking back now, that was a pretty early indication that trouble was ahead.
Right.
I don't think I don't childhood trauma. I hear a lot of stories of some pretty significant, abuse, neglect of things like that, foster care, different, whatever. My childhood trauma is rooted in, like both my parents were at home until I think I was 9 or 10. And they weren't overly like abusive to me, both, neither verbally or physically or anything like that. But when they got home from work after, and they both worked very hard. I remember my parents laying on the couch watching TV, being exhausted. I never received a lot of love or a lot of encouragement or a lot of, I was provided for. I absolutely was. But they also didn't have the best relationship. So that's what I witnessed growing up.
And were you like a pretty good student, in school, like involved?
Absolutely not. I was a terrible student. I didn't give a shit about school. I did graduate. And my highest mark, I did great in mechanics. I've always been very mechanically inclined, but in true addict form, if something didn't give me that instant gratification, I really didn't want very much to do with it. So I squeaked through high school. I think I came out with a 53 average, and that was with my 98% in mechanics. So to give you a little indication there.
So did you play sports or anything, or involved in like activities or anything like that?
No, not really. I never was into sports. I was never really interested in hanging out with the jocks. From an early age, I was always wanting to hang out with the troublemakers. And looking back, I don't really understand why that is, but I wasn't interested in extracurricular activities. I was interested in, in getting a block away from school so I could smoke a cigarette and not get in trouble for it from the school.
Right.
So that's where I went. As soon as I could get into trouble, I was doing my best to do so.
So it sounds like you kind of just maybe started your party years a little bit early. I mean, for me, like I didn't start till I was like 16. So, but actually that's probably pretty normal actually. Like I guess like around 13, 12, 13 years old. So, you know, it seems like you still, because you graduated, things were kind of manageable.
Uh yeah, I mean, I was selling weed out of my Mustang in grade 11. I was known as Weed Man Dan.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'll never forget. I think I was 17, and I was just loaded. Like I could have two puffs off a joint and I would just be wrecked. And I remember driving down a main street in Saskatoon here, and I pulled up behind a canine unit, and I had a lot a lot of weed under my seat, all weighed up into bags ready for sale, like a lot. And I pulled up behind them, and the dog started losing his mind, like trying to get out the back window, and there's a cage so he can't, but you could tell the dog was just losing his mind. So um I, nothing happened. The cop just probably was like, hey, shut up back there, whatever. So fortunately, but yeah, and that was when I was 16 or maybe 17. So
That's scary.
manageability, yeah, I'm not so sure if my life was manageable, but I suppose I held it together by a thread.
Right. Right. So then what happened when it became unmanageable? What did that look like?
Oh, well, I mean, I started into the harder substances when I was 22, and again, like I managed to hold it together. I did become a journeyman welder, and I went to work in northern Saskatchewan and northern Alberta. And it was interesting because when I would leave town, I would get these camp jobs where I would be out of town for 2-3 weeks at a time up north, where addiction is rampant up there, but I wouldn't use up there. And it was interesting because like I would just keep to myself. I would play my guitar, I would go to the gym, I would go to work, I would eat well, I would really like focus on myself. But as soon as I got back to Saskatoon, I would get back into that social environment where I didn't feel like I was good enough unless I was, using substances. And that went on until I was about 28 when I met my now, well, I mean, we can call her my wife. We're not technically married, but I met my partner, and in that same year there was a massive layoff from Fort McMurray. And I knew when I was coming home from that layoff, I'm like, man, I'm in trouble. Like I'm in trouble. If I'm not leaving Saskatoon, like if I'm there full time, this ain't good. And one of the things that my partner and I loved about each other was that we could use drugs together. Like she would never, nag at me or anything for using too much because she would be right there with me. So those two things combined, now I've got this amazing enabler beside me, and and I enabled her just as much. In fact, I introduced her to some substances that to this day sometimes I feel remorseful. But with that being in town all the time, we metaphorically we dove off a cliff together. And
Right.
yeah, so I started a company, and then we found fentanyl. And it didn't take long for the phone to stop ringing. I lost the business. I started dumpster diving. Um, we had our son in this time. We got on the methadone program 6 months after he was born. That went away. We kept on pissing dirty. And yeah, it just kept going downhill until one day the ministry came into our home and apprehended our son.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that is so hard. I mean, how did you feel when that happened?
I'll never forget that day. I remember him I remember him being carried out the door by this social worker, and the two police officers and social workers that attended my home. They were laughing and, like making jokes and stuff the whole time. But the last thing I handed him when he was taken out the door was his favorite little puppy. He's had this little stuffy since he was born, and that was the last thing I handed to him. And 16 days later, his mom, my partner, she walked out the door to a life on the street with a gang member, and it got really quiet after that. And a few months later, I'd had enough. My mom took me out for lunch, and she started plotting. She's like, Dan, you need to do this. You need to do, you need to go back up north, get money, do all the things, get a stable home for your son. And I said, Mom, don't I need to go to treatment first? And the room got quiet, and she said, yes. And she pulled out a form, and it was all filled out already. Like she's like, she slaps it down on the table, and she's like, sign right there. So, yeah, I mean,
Wow.
my mom's been in the addictions field for 30 years. So imagine what she must have been going through watching me do what I was doing. So,
Mm,
yeah.
yeah. Wow. So that's amazing that you had help from your family. When I went through, to recovery, everybody always asked me, like, who was it that, that helped you, that supported you? Was it your
Mhm.
family? And I'm like, no, it was just a group of strangers in
Yeah.
AA.
Yeah.
So that's awesome that you did have, your mom there. And so you came into you went into treatment. Was it like a 1 year treatment or like a detox, or what did you do?
Well, it was February 12th, 2017. That's my clean date. Um, I went to a 14-day detox, Thorpe Recovery here in Saskatchewan. And after that, I went to another 28-day treatment program called Pine Lodge. And after that, when I got out, mom was there, and she just said, do this, do this, do this. And having the realization that the things that I thought I should do usually don't work out for me, I did it. She said, go to the ministry, get your son back. So I did. I went to the ministry. I did everything that they said to do, and I ended up in a sober living house where I stayed for just about a year. And weekly piss tests, weekly case planning, mandatory meetings, 24-hour surveillance. There was a social worker on staff 24 hours a day. And 6 months after I put the dope down, they awarded me interim custody of my son. He was
Wow, that is
3 years old.
amazing.
And
Oh my goodness.
that little puppy that I handed him, that little puppy went with him where I couldn't go. Puppy was with him when he went to the ministry, when he went to Papa and Nana's house. Puppy was there. When we had supervised visits, Puppy was there. And on the day that he was awarded back to me, July 31st, 2017, Puppy was there. And in commemoration of that day, I had Puppy tattooed on my arm, looking over Graydon.
Oh, you're making me cry, Daniel.
He was watching over my son when I couldn't. And wherever I go now, wherever my son goes, Puppy will be there.
Wow, that is amazing. That is such an awesome redeeming story.
Mm.
Because that is the biggest thing when our children get taken into the system, like the hoops that we have to jump through, and the
Mhm.
stigma and the judgment and the shame. That you went through that and you were successful, I mean, that is just amazing. And so while you were going through that, what was going on with your partner?
Um, well, that might be another episode that I try not to tell too much of her story, but I
Right.
can tell you a little bit of it. Is like she turned to a life on the street. She suffered some severe domestic abuse, homelessness, and hang on a sec. I didn't. I told you I'd do my best not to cough. And about let's see. So I was a full-time single dad for a year and a half. So we graduated the coming home program and moved into an apartment, and then one day, her dad comes to my house and says, you know, Donna's back, and she's pregnant. So you'd think that I'd be like, oh, right on, Grady's gonna get his mom back and it's gonna be so amazing. And I wasn't. I was angry. It's like, because so many dark, bad things happened that I just associated all of those bad emotions, like those demons that were running around in my head had Donna's face on them. You know
Mm.
what I mean? Whether that's rational or not, like that was my reality at that time. So a long story short, a big court battle erupted, and we ended up with 50-50 custody. And time went on, you know. She dealt with her recovery in the way that she saw fit. I dealt with mine. We stayed out of each other's way. It wasn't long after the court decision was made that we had a conversation, and we're like, look, why don't we have, on transition days, why don't we just have supper? Like, you can come to my house, we'll have supper with your daughter, with our son, and just to give some sort of normalcy to our relationship, for the children's sake. It was at first.
Right.
Slowly that, that turned into like from an obligation to a pleasure. Like, it was like, oh, all right, let's go have supper at Donna's house. She usually cooks something pretty good, or we have pizza, or we have a conversation. And then Hard Knocks Talks was born. I was in a safety orientation class, or sorry, I was in a occupational health and safety course. I was going to be a safety guy because I'm a welder. I'm a welder. And partway into the class, I just, COVID struck. And one sec here. I'm drying out. COVID struck, and I got this idea from somewhere other than me, that I should start a podcast. So I go on Facebook. I'm like, hey, should I start a podcast? And some of my friends are like, yeah, I'll come on. It'd be awesome. So on February 12th, my clean date, 2021, my first episode of Hard Knocks Talks went live from my dining room table in my low income rental property from a laptop.
Nice.
I was driving my mom's car, like it was just this crazy thing that just like, I have to do this. And the interesting part, like, when I thought of the idea, I didn't know what to call it. And I'll never forget, I live 2 blocks from the river here in Saskatoon, and I was walking. It was a beautiful February day. The sun was shining. There was snow on the ground. I had a little puppy. Now he's a big stinky dog, but he was cute then. And then, I'm walking. I even remember where I was looking. I remember the spot. I looked up and just Hard Knocks Talks. And like, I shed a tear. Like, I started crying, and I just said, thank you. Whatever. Thank you. Thank you. And ever since then, it's just been a wild ride. I'm sitting in this chair going 100 miles an hour type thing. You know how that feels?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So out of all of this, pain birthed this beautiful ministry. I consider it a ministry, because you help so many people in sharing, experiences, yours and everybody else's. So what is life like now? Like, like full-time dad, kids, podcast life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, frankly, like, so a few months ago, just to bring the story to fruition here, we're having our Friday night supper, Donna and I and the kids, and the kids are off in the living room playing, and she's talking to me, and she's like, man, I see all this shit that you're doing, and like, what I'm doing isn't working. Like, like, maybe like I want to do something. And we started talking about some ideas that she had, and none of them really like none of them really sat. And I'm like, I've got this streaming studio. You've got this wild lived experience that you could help. You could bring a lot of healing to the community. And she's like, not that type at all. Like, she is not She's not the, like, if I'm a bumblebee bumping into the windows making noise, like she's the ladybug that's sort of under the leaves. You know what I mean? So I said, well, this is what I can help you with, you know? And then a couple of days went by, and I think she texted me or called me, and she's like, fuck it, let's do it. And yeah, and Phoenix Fire was born. You know, now she's on her 25th episode. And from the first moment that she went live, I knew that something in her had changed. Like that, because I'd been watching her for a number of years. I'm like, is she normal now? Is she still, you know, like frankly, you know, I'll be like, I'm thinking like, is she still nuts? You know? So, but that was it. When she went live, I knew that was so outside of her character. For her to have the courage to do that, something inside of her had changed. And after that episode, I'm like, Donna, I think we should talk about being together again. You know, we've walked our own paths. We've found healing in our own ways, and it just seems like the universe keeps pushing us together. And we reconciled, and we've been together for a number of months now. We're now living together, raising our daughter and our son. And it's hard. It's hard. But if I don't have mountains to climb, if I don't have dragons to slay, you know, like the gift is in the struggle. That is where the growth is, you know, like they say gifts of recovery. And, you know, some people may see rainbows and ice cream and you know, all of the things that wealth and luxury can bring. Those are byproducts of the gift. I'll tell you that. In my experience, the things that give me the most gratitude are the challenges that I face and overcome. And I have lots of those in my life, and I am so grateful for them. They bring me grand peace.
Wow. That is awesome. You have such an awesome story, Daniel. Man, I did not like expect that at the end. Like, what an awesome twist for her to, you know, come out and change like that. Like, that is so cool.
I still can't believe it. Some days I'll sit over here in the moderating station and I'll just look over and see her in the light with the camera on. And I'm just like, I can't believe this is even happening. Like, who even is that?
That's so awesome. Cause you know, me and my husband are both, you know, content creators, and that's how we met, you know, is on a collaboration. So it's cool when you have somebody to share that with, share the passion for, you know, for your mission, and, you know, somebody to come alongside you. And it does it, do you struggle a little bit with balance in your relationship because of that? Like, where you're constantly like working or ideas creating, and then you're like, oh no, wait, we need to be.
Well, we are actually we do actually struggle with that, you know, because I'm the one that runs the platform. I'm the one that's always making the content and posting and making sure that there's always fresh things for the community to look at and experience. So that does take up my day. And Donna, for the most part, she runs the house. You know, she makes sure that there's food in the fridge. She makes sure that there's supper on the table, and she does a wonderful job. She's an amazing homemaker. You know? So, and I think that while it may seem unbalanced on both sides, I think that our drive to do the things that need to be done in our own lives in our own ways, they complement each other. And while we're not perfect, while there is places where I could do better, you know, we get through, and we have a mutual respect, and we grow and we learn.
Awesome. Wow, I love that. It's like a recovery story and a love story like mixed together. It's I'm a hopeless romantic, so I love it. Wow. Well, thank you so much for coming on here and like sharing all that. And wow, that was so, you have a great story, Dan. You should share your story more.
Well, tell all your podcaster friends I'm happy to bring my experience to their platform. You know,
Good.
That's what it's all about, right?
Yes, absolutely.
If you're a program person, you'll understand that's step 12, right? We carry a message.
Sure do. Yes, we sure do. And I never thought in a million years it would be in this way.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, I'm a welder. When I started doing this in 2021, I didn't even know how to open a Word document. Like, so.
Yeah, Daniel's my hero on the technical aspect.
Oh God.
Thanks.
Oh man. If you don't have all day, then don't do it how I do it, man. Just stay with StreamYard and you'll be good.
Yeah, yeah. All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Daniel. You guys make sure you follow Hard Knocks Talks on all the platforms. And we will see you next time on Recovery Inspired Hope. Make sure you subscribe to Jamie Tall on YouTube, and we will see you next time.
Thanks so much.